There's a human need captured by video games very well. It's that desire to be somewhere else. Look at what happened when COVID hit. The industry went through the roof. But even when life is normal-ish, you have a tough day at work, all you want to do is go to the gym, play some video games, relax, right? Well, I promise there are many, many men in suits just salivating over the opportunity to help you sate that need. It starts in 1978 at Essex University in England. Roy Trubshaw is on the school's mainframe writing a program he calls MUD, Multi-User Dungeon, a name simultaneously accurate and boring. His friend Richard Bartle expanded it, and together they invented a new kind of social space, which the world would spend the next several decades figuring out what to do with. The answer, it turned out, was subscription fees. A MUD is a text-based multiplayer environment on a shared server. Many people, one world, real-time, typed commands, north, take sword, kill goblin. The appeal really isn't immediately obvious until you consider what 1978 offered instead in terms of entertainment, which was 3 television channels and going to bed at a reasonable hour like someone with a future.
Now, this is what a healthy Boston fern looks like with proper watering.
Against that, a text box connecting to another person, somewhere else, also awake at 2 a.m. because they need to fight a troll, was genuinely radical. Not rhetorically radical, like righteous radical, like awesome radical, like wicked bitchin'. Richard Bartle's subsequent academic writing on player types, achievers, explorers, socializers, and killers became so foundational to game design that people still cite it in the way that theologians cite scripture. Reverently, and without always having read it. The core observation is that a shared virtual space will attract people who want fundamentally different things from it, and those people will share a world whether they like each other or not. The person who spent 6 hours decorating their virtual house, and the person who exists to find that house and burn it down our neighbors. This is hysterical, but remains the unsolvable design problem of every multiplayer game since. Throughout the 80s, MUD spread across just about every university network, hundreds of them, most of them run by volunteers and free to access. People were building things for each other, for free, an extremely temporary condition.
Subscribe.
Millions of subscribers.
Subscribe.
Thousands of new subscribers.
Subscribe. Free gift to new subscribers.
New subscribers.
Subscribe.
The commercial realization of what these MUDs were worth did not arrive cleanly. It arrived through CompuServe. Now, CompuServe launched consumer services in 1979 and was, for a significant stretch of time, the only way most Americans could access anything resembling an online world. See, back in the olden days, your parents and I didn't have high-speed internet at home. We had analog landlines.
Remove the receiver and listen for the dial tone. It sounds like this.
The only way to transmit data across those lines were by sound. You dialed a number via a modem.
Yeah, I just bought a new modem myself.
Yeah, that's great, Jack. That's marvelous.
The two computers negotiated the data protocol and speed.
Hey, want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
This was called a handshake, though handshakes are less screechy. Then you were connected to whatever server you called. Companies offering access to their digital services, like CompuServe, had a telephone switching handler and giant racks of modems that took our calls and gave us data. They charged by the hour, $6 an hour at 300 baud, $12 an hour at 1200 baud. What is a baud? It is the number of bits per second transmitted over an analog telephone line to a modem. Here's an example of 300 baud. Here's an example of 1200 baud. And here's an example of 9600 baud, motherfucker. My God, the speed. Okay, where was I? Right, $12 an hour for 1200 baud. So, for example, if you played a game for 10 hours per week at 1200 baud, you would be charged around $500 at the end of the month. That's a lot. Adjusted for inflation, that's $2,000 at time of writing. This sounds quaint until you understand that people paid it regularly and without fully processing what was happening to them until the bill arrived. In 1985, CompuServe launched Island of Kesmai, a graphical MUD. People logged in, fought monsters, explored dungeons, and ran up phone bills their parents are still emotionally processing. Sorry, Mom and Dad.
This is the Island of Kesmai, a Dungeons & Dragons type of game, and Michael Orkin, a statistician who's designed and played his share of games, is playing it for the first time with 2 other people 2,000 miles away in real time via the CompuServe network. This is an example of what's called a multi-user game. Several people can be online playing any one game simultaneously. They're not your arcade-type games with stunning graphics. Their visual display consists of the basic characters that can be sent across the phone lines to all types of computers. Angle brackets, carrots, dashes, and dollar signs represent doors, altars, or treasure, for instance. But graphics are not the selling point for multi-user games.
The game was $12 an hour during peak hours. It was genuinely good. Those two facts together are a psychological trap that CompuServe understood and did nothing to warn anyone about. That said, CompuServe's target audience was really the business users. It was not gamers. I use that term loosely because your choices then were pretty much Pong.
You're watching the most exciting game you will ever see on your TV set.
Or Space Invaders. Fast forward to the late 80s, and the broader online service market sorted itself into a few competing visions of what this thing should be. Prodigy launched in 1988. It was a joint venture between IBM and Sears, a sentence that is not aged gracefully, and took an approach targeting families using a flat rate model that felt safer but came with restrictions on how much content a subscriber could actually access before incurring additional charges.
You can get the scores before the paper does. Well, the game's in progress. What's that? Baseball scores? Come on. All right. Prodigy. Great service. You gotta get this thing. Prodigy.
GEnie, run by General Electric, went after the enthusiast crowd, priced somewhere between CompuServe's punishing model and something a person could survive. But none of them had really figured out who they were yet. Then, AOL. Jesus Christ.
You've got mail.
They also charged by the hour through the early 90s, around $3 per hour on top of a monthly base rate. And they sent out floppy disks, which were not floppy anymore, and CD-ROMs. They fucking blanketed the country with free trial hours. And man, if you were alive in the mid-90s, you probably still have an AOL disk around there somewhere. Anyway, backing up just a smidge, so in 1991, AOL launched Neverwinter Nights. This was the original Neverwinter Nights, not the BioWare one. This was a graphical MMO RPG that's widely considered the first of its kind at any meaningful commercial scale, at $6 an hour. Neverwinter Nights ran for 6 years on AOL, and at its peak had over 115,000 active players. Then, in December 1996, AOL switched to flat-rate pricing. $19.95 a month. Unlimited access. The amount of ASCII art porn you could download was unfathomable.
Now that I've gotten on the internet, I'd rather be on my computer than doing just about anything.
It's really cool.
And their servers collapsed within days.
The world's largest computer service, America Online, went down yesterday for 19 hours.
A black day.
They had not built the infrastructure for what happened when they removed the financial penalty for staying online, which was that people simply stayed online.
You wanted flat rate unlimited use, and we delivered. But we underestimated the demand.
The ensuing class action lawsuit was settled for $35 million. This told the suits two very important things: that people would absolutely pay a flat monthly fee to access a shared online world, and that the demand was, if anything, larger than anyone had modeled. This is the context in which commercial MUDs began to make sense as a business. Meridian 59 in 1996, often cited as the first graphical MMO in the modern sense, came out charging a flat monthly subscription. Clean logic. Get people invested in a character, a guild, social world that exists independently of them and continues without them, and then charge them access. The relationship between an MMO and its player is that the world holds something that belongs to you, and leaving means abandoning it. Storage units operate on a similar model.
Wow, indeed.
Ultima Online arrived in 1997, published by Electronic Arts, who have been finding new ways to disappoint people since 1982. And it scaled the concept to something genuinely unprecedented.
We determined that in the long run, our small team, we assumed and hoped, would be too small to continue to create content nearly as fast as the players would be able to consume it. Since we knew we would eventually lose that foot race, we decided to try to build some automated systems to help fill in that gap. And one of those that we created was what we called the virtual ecology. The map itself, the terrain and the vegetation on the terrain would actually grow and create food for one set of creatures in the game, which I'll broadly call the herbivores. So the deer and rabbits would roam the countryside, and they would multiply to a degree that would come into balance with the rate of vegetation that was produced in any general area. So you find more deer and rabbits in the forests and the grasslands and fewer of them out in the deserts. And we would spawn the carnivores up in the mountains or farther away, more remote places. And they would wander around looking for meat to eat, which generally would be the herbivores. And if they emptied out the population of sheep and rabbits, they wouldn't have anything to eat, and so they couldn't reproduce, and so therefore they would come into a natural balance also. When a herbivore found a piece of vegetation, i.e. a tall piece of grass, they would consume it, and it would become a short piece of grass. In fact, that was one of the beauties to watch, is to watch, the rabbit just going around mowing the grass, or the goats and the deer running around slowly mowing the grass, and then running out in one area and then identifying in some distant area another place to go graze, just like real animals do. The real trick was how to make sure that that balance, then how did that interact with carnivores who could wipe them out, but then wouldn't care for the grass, so the grass would all become, herbaceous again. And conversely, players could kill either the herbivores, which we thought in our mind's eye they wouldn't do very much because there wasn't much value in those herbivores. And instead, we assumed that they would tend to fight the carnivores, not only because the carnivores would be attacking them, but also we had created quests to where the pelts of the carnivores were worth more. And so we assumed that that was sort of the leapfrog target that everyone would take on, the same way we rationally were playing the game, we thought. Frankly, the service didn't work at so many levels.
A persistent world for tens of thousands of simultaneous players, built on the back of an established Ultima universe, designed with the kind of ecological idealism that only survives contact with actual players for about 72 hours.
What we discovered the moment the game went live was that players ran over the world like a swarm of ants that consumed every living thing as fast as it was possible to spawn it. They killed every creature. So as soon as a deer or a rabbit or a wolf showed up on the map, the nearest person to it killed it, skinned it, took its meat and took its hide instantaneously. And the fact that the wolf was worth more than the deer or the rabbit was irrelevant. Just the fact that it was fun to kill would have been enough for them to eradicate all life, all living things on the surface.
That's either a useful data point about human nature or a great preview of every corporate attempt to model human behavior that followed. The PvP system had essentially no consequences, which turned out to matter. Because I guess when you remove consequences from violence in an anonymous online space, some people will do just that, constantly. And the person who logged in just to fish is going to find out. Jesus Christ, leave me alone, just let me do the thing. Game designers were, for some reason, surprised by this repeatedly. That ongoing surprise is one of the more reliable comedic through lines in the industry.
I look forward to some young whippersnapper proving me wrong.
This brings us to 1999 and EverQuest. If you don't know what EverQuest is, I'll give you a minute to look it up. No, I mean, we'll wait. No, it's cool. No, just go look real quick. Well, wait, I'm serious. I'm not gonna go on without you, I promise. No, go ahead. Idiot. Developed by Variant and published by Sony, it was large, genuinely beautiful by the standards of the time, and punishing in a way that felt almost principled.
Left our party in a pinch. The fight had looked like it would be a cinch. But the mage ran out of mana, the cleric said manana, and I was dead before I'd moved an inch.
Dying meant losing experience. Retrieving your corpse was its own ordeal.
Has anybody here seen my corpse?
There was no fast travel, no level appropriate content discovery system, no hand to hold. This was a world that would not accommodate incompetence. And the game's expectation was that you would organize with other people or fail. That expectation was not wrong, and the social architecture it created, guilds as functioning organizations, raid encounters requiring 40 to 70 coordinated people, that produced something the genre had not quite managed before. People called it EverCrack and meant it warmly. As it does, the media focused on the negatives of games like EverQuest, citing addiction leading to broken relationships and psychological damage, which in a few cases led to self-harm. Now, there were negatives, absolutely. While it did lead to some relationships ending, it also led to relationships forming, real ones, in real life. It created a gateway for people with social anxiety to naturally acclimate to interactions with real people. Because there were real people on the other end of those digital avatars. I mean, maybe, different gender or age than presented, but they weren't NPCs. And while it's not media sexy to say so, and not to diminish the pain to those it affected negatively, the reality is that EverQuest and games like it saved lives. Many of them.
It's easy to see how you might be drawn into the enchanting world of EverQuest and then have trouble ever getting out.
Players weren't addicted to the game. They were addicted and attached to the people in it. And quitting meant leaving them. That's a different kind of hard. Though in real life, I honestly believe there should be a difficulty slider for attachment level. Dark Age of Camelot in 2001 solved the PvP chaos problem by organizing it. 3 factions, realm versus realm conflict. The chaotic mob was given a uniform and a purpose. Armies work the same way, and for the same reason. Then there was Asheron's Call, which ran a monthly evolving narrative. It was a live story that responded to what the players were doing. This was ambitious enough that nobody has really replicated it since, which I suppose says something about the industry's appetite for operational complexity in service of storytelling. In 2003, Star Wars Galaxies built the most intricate player economy the genre had seen. It was a virtual society, functional and strange enough that people still talk about it with the specific grief of something ruined by the people that owned it. Sony and LucasArts overhauled it in 2005 for accessibility, which they achieved but lost the rest. Needless to say, the community response was the kind that is only possible when people genuinely loved something. They did. Loudly. November 23rd, 2004. World of Warcraft. Okay, the thing about WoW's arrival is that from the outside, it can look like an entry in an established genre. What it was is closer to proof that the genre had been leaving money on the table. Blizzard had a universe. Warcraft, the strategy series. It had years of lore and established audience. They built a world out of it, players already had feelings about it long before logging in for the first time. That is not a small advantage. The IP did structural work before the game had to. What Blizzard built on top of that was a system designed to minimize the distance between a player and having a good time. Now, WoW was not easy. The raid content was demanding and the endgame had genuine depth. But dying didn't cost you your gear. You could find appropriate content without a research project. You could play alone for hours without the game making you feel like a liability. And when you wanted the 40-person raid experience, the guild infrastructure was there, fully functional. It was introduced already capable of becoming the organizing social structure of someone's life, if they were in the right state to let it. And many were. 1 million subscribers in the first month. 5 million by the end of 2005. 8 million by 2006. 12 million at peak around Wrath of the Lich King in 2010. 12 million people at $15 a month is $180 million monthly, all from renting access to something that already existed, that cost nothing meaningful to add one more subscriber to. Every publisher and developer of any meaningful size looked at WoW's subscriber count and had the same thought. Shit, we want that, gimme. This was not an irrational thought. Markets shift, dominant products get displaced, but it produced a specific kind of motivated reasoning. A conviction that WoW's success was fundamentally transferable to a different team with a different IP and a different budget, as long as the budget was large enough. The years between WoW's launch in 2010 are a graveyard of things that were going to be the WoW killer, funded on that very conviction. Some were genuine creative swings.
Auto-assault.
Some were not at all that. Most were somewhere in the middle. Real visions that also required hundreds of millions of dollars to have any chance at the scale the market now expected. The gap between what it cost to compete in that space and what most studios could actually access did not show up in pitch decks. Speaking of pitching, into this specific moment, with this specific gap, walks Curt Schilling.
Boom, bitches.
Okay, now seriously, that segue deserves a subscription. And a like, and a comment, and hype, and fucking everything. Oh, yeah, and for anyone who needs it, Curt Schilling is a fairly famous baseball pitcher.